So I'm working on the Chevy K10 bench seat. I figure I'd do this video, maybe it might help somebody else. But all the little wires that the cushion sit on are rusted away and broken. And I was not able to find reproduction wires to stick in there, nor am I taking this to an upholstery shop and paying someone to do this. I do it all myself. As far as the wire, I went to Home Depot and Lowe's, and when you go down the aisles, really all you're going to run into is steel wire that you can pretty much manipulate however you want with just your fingers, which isn't what you want. You need hard steel wire, and when it comes to bending, it needs to be done with a pair of pliers. So trying to find hard steel wire sounds easy, but apparently it's not. So I talked to the guy at Lowe's, told him what I had. I came with one of my old ones, and I told him that I'm trying to find hard steel wire. So we sat there and brainstormed as far as what you would use that on in an everyday situation that you would find in Lowe's. And he ended up coming up with survey flags. These are just regular survey flags when you're trying to mark where your water lines, power lines, anything like that. Doesn't matter what color flags you get, I just ended up with orange. But these wires are actually hard steel wires, and you can't bend it with your finger. I mean, you can bend them in the middle, but you need hard steel wire, and that's what this is. The same diameter as the factory wire used on the bench seat, and then you need some rope. I had this laying around, which is why I'm using it. So polyester or nylon rope will work. And I made a little jig out of some steel plate that I had laying around. That's about 2mm thick steel plate. Obviously you don't need something that big, but thickness wise is about what you need because that covers the bend. But what I did was I took one of my old wires and took a pair of vice grips, clamped it onto the plate, and then I took my old wire, just hooked it onto the end. You can see it's not that far down, it's just kind of hooked on there. And then I marked it where it laid on one side and then on the other side, and then I just made a little notch, just enough to hold my wires as I put them in there. And then it's a matter of just making all your wires. I started at this end. I'd have an inch sticking out, so I would kind of lay the wire on there with an inch sticking out on this side, hold on to the inch that's sticking out, make the first bend, and then your wire will end up sitting on top of the vice grips. Before you go any farther, you got to clamp the wire in place. So these are just 2 body clamps, holding the wire to the back side. And then when you come to the other end, just take a pair of pliers, hold it close to the edge, make this bend, and then you got to move the pliers down, finish making the bend. And then what I did to get the first few done, so kind of get an idea of how my angles are, I would just lay the old wire back on top and then make the bend, because they kind of come up and out at an angle. Same thing on both ends. So once you make the bends, it kind of makes the wire to where it's a front and rear specific setup when it goes onto the frame. All my wires were done on the back side of this plate, so all my angles are the same on every wire. I didn't flip from one side to the other side. I kept them all on the back side. Now I'll show you what I mean by front and rear specific. If you don't have any wires that are any good, from bend to bend, inside is 15 5/8. So you can just kind of measure it out, mark it, and I'll get you some wires. But you can see they're either broken and rusted. But when I say they're front and rear specific, just on how it loops onto this, it comes up over the wire and then gets twisted down. Same thing on the back. Goes around the wire, comes up, and then gets twisted down. So you can see how all mine are done in that same pattern all along it. Then this is where the rope comes into play. This is actually some kind of cardboard, twisted cardboard paper looking stuff. It's not any good, so that's why I'm using the rope. But all my rope goes in line with those two. If you don't have anything and you just leave it like that, when you put weight on it, they just kind of go in different directions. They're not tied together. Versus with the rope, it actually uses the spring and it's tied together. You can squeeze it together, but when you put weight on it, they don't spread apart. So I throw a couple wires on there, and I take the wires from my survey flags that I don't need, and I just cut a little section in a U, and then just reverse it as I put them onto each wire, just flipping back and forth. That's why I have that zigzag pattern. So put it on there and then kind of twist it into a couple of loops and then squeeze them real tight so they can't slide up and down on the wire. They need to stay in this position. So these you can't move up and down on the wire. They're locked in place. And that ties it all together. And each wire needs to be an inch separated apart. I say they need to be because that's how all those are. So I took a tape measure, and before I did the final crimp on the wire, I would just measure and verify that this gap is an inch. And that's it. Figured I'd do a video, maybe it helps somebody out on their bench seat. So I'm almost halfway. It's time consuming, but it's not that hard. It's pretty easy. That's it.